We started talking about your master's thesis.
Okay. My thesis for my master's was written in Manchester, New Hampshire, while we were living in Nashua, using cases at the family agency about families where the children had to be placed in foster care or given up for adoption. It was evident from studying the history of these families who could not provide a safe home for their children that the parents themselves as children had been brought up in similar homes and had no models in good parenting. Even though I had my degree, I was an at-home mom for a number of years. I didn't begin working until Johnny, Danny, David, and Debbie were all in school. Life was busy and intense, with me wearing different hats as mom, wife, Robertson, Sunday school teacher, social worker. I began working in Highland Park and Woodbridge when Herschel was rabbi of Neve Shalom in Metuchen. When we moved to Princeton, it was quite a long commute to Woodbridge, but I kept working until 1995, when the agency was combined with the Princeton Family Service and most of us were dismissed. Luckily, I found a lovely private office with a social worker whom I had supervised when working at the agency and began a private practice. I enjoyed working with individuals and couples. Each situation was different, and many clients were helped to minimize their weaknesses and discover their strengths. I tried to identify with people's fears and insecurities, with their need of support and a helping hand. Some only wanted their partners changed, but some began to recognize how they alienated and hurt their families and tried to find ways to change. In December of 1987, Herschel suddenly had a fatal heart attack and passed away. It was a terrible shock to the family, of course, but also to hundreds and hundreds of so many other people who loved and admired him. So many people from all the congregations he had served came to the funeral, and the number of letters of condolence I received were numerous and heartfelt. I was fortunate to have my children and grandchildren over time ease my feelings of loss of Herschel after 40 years of a wonderful marriage. I'm especially grateful to Milt and Debbie, who live so close and look after me, and now also Shira, Asher, Kira, Jacob, and Isaac are in Highland Park. Johnny, Danny, and David and grandchildren are in frequent touch. Danny edited a book, Walking Humbly with God, that summarized Herschel's life and edited his still very relevant essays. He was seen as way ahead of his time in his views of women's and homosexuals' rights, his views of theology, prayer, and miracles. I turn to the book often, especially the part that talks about our needing to recognize the many miracles in our lives and the hundreds of blessings that help us to recognize the miracles. Johnny keeps me up to date on what's happening with him, his new family, and politics in Israel. David is my go-to person for everything that's difficult on my laptop. Danny took on and has finished a translation and commentary of the Zohar up there. And while he lives in California, he often travels east to speak and makes sure to visit here. I'm grateful for my grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Shira, I already mentioned. Leora, Ari, little Jack and Hannah, Adina and David, Lisa, who's here today,
Daniel.
Adina and Daniel. I thought I said Daniel. And Michaela with Sarah and Becca, Gav and Sarah Beth, who are expecting in July, Eliza, Dylan, and Aaron, Elah, and Etan. Often over the years, my sons and often grandchildren have come for Pesach, and I visit David when he leads Yom Kippur services in Fairfield, Iowa. I've been fortunate to travel a bit while I still could. Israel quite a few times, Jordan, England, France, Italy, one time with Anna for a week, and just wonderful Florence, and another time with my dear sister, the other cities in Italy, to Dallas, Texas to visit Leora and her delightful family, and of course to Berkeley to visit the California Mets. May, my sister, visits here frequently. Her sons Izzy, daughter-in-law Dawn, and 6 children live here. She also visits Israel 3 to 4 months a year, where now 4 grandchildren of hers have made Aliyah. In 2001, I visited Berlin after having left 70 years earlier, upon the invitation of the city council. And I went with my friend Brigitte Goldstein, who had been there many times before. I thought it would be very traumatic visiting there, but everything was so different. It didn't seem like the same place I had left in 1941. So many memorials and guides who were very open about all the atrocities that had taken place. I belong to the Highland Park Conservative Temple, also to the Highland Park Minyan, an intimate, egalitarian davening community, and I'm an associate member of Debbie and Milt's modern Orthodox shul, Ahavas Achim. The apartment building I live in is almost like an assisted living facility. My dear friend Lil Prince runs a gourmet restaurant on the 5th floor. I have a helper, Yaakov, who now wheels me to shul, a wonderful seamstress, and other friends in the building with whom I share a Hadassah book group. Different from other book groups in that we choose books that we read at the meetings rather than before, and that we discuss in depth. I have also been auditing classes at Rutgers for many years, attend our Rabbi Melamad's classes, and a fiction book group to read recent important books. I recently started teaching a lovely Chinese woman who's just come to the United States a year ago, and also to my neighbors across the hall who come from Siberia. Yuri, who is this neighbor, is a Russian poet and knows English vocabulary and reading and writing very well, but his speaking is poor. Russian doesn't have any articles, so I help him with his conversation. I'm also a member of a Salam Shalom group of Muslim and Jewish women who meet monthly to get to know each other and each other's religion and culture, and work together to eradicate both anti-Muslim and anti-Semitic prejudice. So Highland Park is a good place for seniors, a good place to age, with many facilities, both cultural and athletic. I'm still driving locally daytime, but township transportation is available as well. So I'm very fortunate, still in fairly good health at my age. Hope to remain vertical and have a good reason to get up in the morning. I still look forward to joyous occasions in the family and a radical and positive change in our present, not to my liking, government politics, with Trump welcoming Pesach by cleaning out his cabinet again and again. Thank you very much.
Okay. Now Debbie's got a couple of
Any
questions.
questions?
Yeah, you go back to Uncle David. So
No.
put it on tape. I want to put it on tape.
I just don't want to be on tape.
You don't have to be on tape.
Okay.
Your voice will be on tape. Like mine.
And what's my question?
Did you ask why David perished and everybody else survived?
David, do you want to say something about those pictures, or no? Is this too long already?
No,
No.
no. This is like a 19 minutes.
Uh, And it's still 19. Okay. It was 29, now it's 19.
Yeah, now it's 18.
So these photographs, what should we say now? These are, it's the camera's not going to pick up all the.
Well, it can if you want me to, but yeah.
Lisa, does that lamp go up one?
Higher?
No, it doesn't. It's just that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I put this together for some of Danny's yard sides. We recently had a number of people come over for his 30th yard side. And Joe Rosenstein always finds one of Danny's articles to discuss. And we have some pictures from over the years. This is Danny's and Anna's wedding. Here's Johnny with Herschel as a Camp Ramah. This was a party where we gave Hershey the Mizrach at his 60th birthday. Here's Herschel as about a 12-year-old. This was our last Hanukkah together. And here we are with Shira, Herschel and David at the Wuchaki's home. Herschel pretending to be very aggressive, hanging out laundry. The Matt family, this was at Beulah and Zelda's 60th, and their brother and Herschel's brother Leonard's 70th birthdays. And here we are with our dear friends, the Kaplans. And here Danny and Herschel are putting up a mezuzah. I think it might be at Danny's new house. Here's Herschel with my sister May when she was just a young teenager. And
Like this.
Herschel at Debbie's wedding. And a trip to Hollywood with a make-believe person. And here's a pre-Pesach picture that we posed for one of the newspapers in Metuchen. Okay, of course, like everybody else, I have many more pictures, but we'll call it a day for that.
And over here, this is Matt history, right?
Yeah, C. David Matt. This, he was in Philadelphia I guess he was born in Philadelphia in 1890, and so he was there till 1912, I guess including his time for the seminary in New York. Then his first pulpit was in Minneapolis from 1912 to 1927, and then a couple of years in Buffalo, and then in 1927 29, and then the part two of the board is Rabbi back in Philadelphia from 1929 until he died in 1951, I think. And he was born C. David Matt, or Common David Matt, and then his University of Pennsylvania yearbook says Common David Matt Matty. I didn't know until today that he had a nickname of Matty.